Hi, blogging heads. I'm Betsy Woodruff. This is Woodruff and Strauss, and I'm here with my very dear friend Daniel Strauss, who has a different background because he is in Talking Points Memo's glamorous and exciting New York City office.
Where it all started.
Where the magic began. I am with Daily Beast. I hope you appreciate the Ronald Reagan and Harry Truman pictures behind me. I hope that shows up on the video. Yeah, exactly. Lots of different foreign policy views represented on the wall decorations of the Daily Beast's DC office. And today we are going to have a quick but meaty discussion about a lot of people who aren't going to be president. So
you never know.
You never know. You never know.
Probably not.
It's true. And regardless, most of the people we talk about aren't going to be president anyway. So we are going to lead off with a socialist. Daniel, can you maybe give us, I don't know, what's the Cliff's Notes on Bernie Sanders? What is?
I mean, unlike other candidates, I think Bernie Sanders is a socialist from Vermont. He caucuses with Democrats. He's an independent. By name, he's old. He's loud. He's championed a lot of the liberal progressive topics that Elizabeth Warren has done, but he is not Warren and doesn't have sort of the oomph for the popularity that he does or the fundraising appeal. But he's running, and
right.
He says he's in it to win. He has a pretty well experienced sort of a political point person named Tad Devine, but everybody still thinks that he's really in it just to move Clinton to the left and to push the debate in that direction. He's a little old, a little sort of screaming.
Seems a little crotchety.
Yeah, a little crotchety in an appealing sort of humorous way, which is what you look for in politics.
He seems sort of very avuncular.
And he's running. And actually, as far as I've seen so far, the Clinton folks have not really even acknowledged him at all. And they're going to have to, because just yesterday, the Democrats announced how many debates are going to be in the primary. There are going to be 6.
That's exciting. I am so excited about that.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Are you kidding? I'm more excited about the Democratic debates than the Republican debates.
Why?
We've been watching millions and millions of Republicans line up on debate stages and argue about immigration since the dawn of time. This is nothing new. The Republican debates are going to be interesting and fun, but we kind of know how it's going to go. The Democrat debates, is Hillary going to go after Jim Webb? Are we going to have some sort of Lincoln Chafee versus Bernie Sanders smackdown?
So how many
are any Democrats going to announce that? Are any Democrats going to announce that they're running now that there's a bunch of debates? Apparently Al Gore was in Iowa or something last week. It could happen.
Oh.
It's just. I mean, I was worried there weren't going to be Democrat debates, and Hillary was going to be like, "Screw this, I'm over it." Everybody knows.
Show up.
Or she wouldn't show up. Yeah. But the fact that the DNC is having debates means Hillary pretty much has to show up, and she has to share a stage with, Jim Webb, who's going to yell about how Democrats need to do more outreach to white people. That's really going to be amazing.
Yeah, let's link to Jamel Bouie's really, really good post on a while back from Slate on that, which is great. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the most interesting things about that is it's, they're all there. You put Hillary on stage, the presumptive frontrunner, with all these pressure point people. So there's going to be Webb, who's going to be talking about the plight of the poor white Democrat. There's going to be Sanders, who's going to be talking about how Hillary doesn't do enough to break up big banks. And then there's going to be Lincoln Chafee wants to talk about foreign policy, apparently, and Martin O'Malley, who I'm not really clear what. I mean, I don't know what. Yeah.
All of it is amazing.
You sold it. You kind of sold me here, Betsy. I mean, the last few cycles there have been 24 Republican debates.
It's just so predictable.
Out of hand.
We've seen so many of them. It eventually got to where it was such a nonstop drumming of weirdness that it stopped being fun. I mean,
the crazy thing about it, though, is that I was going to ask you, and so what do you think Hillary has to show up? I kind of think she does,
Definitely,
right?
Yeah.
She has to go to the debate.
If she doesn't show up, the RNC would love for her not to show up. That would be awesome.
The Republican National Committee.
Oh, yeah. And also, I mean, part of the reason she has to show up is that she's going to have to do general election debates, and if this is the best way to prepare for them. She doesn't want to have to go to a general election presidential debate against the Republican nominee, with the Republican nominee having just finished 83 debates and her doing her first debate in what, 6 years? No, 8, 10 years? A really long time? Like, she doesn't want to do that. That would be terrible. So it's going to be fun. Can we talk really briefly? You were mentioning Bernie Sanders pushing Hillary to the left.
Yeah.
You obviously understand this world better than I do. The areas where there's significant room to the left of Hillary Clinton, Wall Street regulation, obviously she's not a hero of that, right? Tell me if I'm wrong about this stuff.
Right.
Foreign policy.
She's a New York Democrat. New York Democrats, I mean, the New York region is where Democrats usually get a lot of their like serious money, and those Democrats generally are viewed. Schumer, Gillibrand, or Booker are viewed as kind of weak on banking. What a
weird, confusing coincidence. Well, it's like weird. I don't know what that's about. So banking reform. There's the fact that voted for the Iraq War has been, hasn't done much to distinguish herself from her previous foreign policy stances. Does not seem particularly progressive on foreign policy, like not the way Jim Webb would be.
Yeah.
The whole Clinton legacy, right? The Clinton legacy of welfare reform.
I hate to say this, but I kind of have this sneaking suspicion, and I'm about to work on something on. Hillary just laid out some immigration points yesterday, and Dara Lind of Vox said that she'd gone even farther than she expected and more liberal on this. It seems like, I mean, I don't want to understate Hillary on criminal justice reform and then this. It seems like she's almost anticipating some areas where she could be pushed to the left, or like coming out in front on areas where there aren't a lot of pressure points. There's no immigration candidate.
And the 90s, and the Clinton's presidency was the time of being tough on crime. Yeah. That was Clinton's criminal justice legacy that Hillary Clinton generally supported was, higher incarceration rates, more aggressive policing, tougher mandatory minimum sentences, drug war. I mean, even when Hillary talks about pot, even now, she sounds like sort of your elderly relative who's like, I don't want kids smoking the weed. Like that's the tone that gets communicated. Not to say Republicans are any better, but this is obviously not somebody who's been investing a significant amount of mental firing power in these issues. It seems to me.
I mean, I think. I think that's fair. I think we're going to see her address some of those things. I actually don't know where she is on. She didn't weigh into. I mean, in the criminal justice reform speech, she said alternative offenses or alternative punishments for lower level offenses. So presumably that means like getting caught with pot, you don't go to jail for 10 years.
Maybe.
But
who
knows?
We'll find out. That's going to be a great thing to talk about in the Democrat presidential debates.
Hot.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be great all around.
Do you think Bernie Sanders smokes pot?
Yes. Oh God, now I'm on it. What do you think? Thanks, Betsy. Wow. This is just.
I feel like if you live in Vermont, there's a law that says you have to smoke pot. Maybe.
I think you might be too old to smoke pot.
I don't know, but he's been a hippie for a long time.
Well, right? I think he's probably smoked pot. Yeah, somebody should ask him.
Yeah. No kidding.
I'll race you to the Capitol.
Cool.
So what do you? So I mean, are you? I guess I'm just sort of wondering, like, except for O'Malley, a lot of these guys seem to be pitching themselves as sort of like, I'm just in it to like shape the debate and all that stuff. Do you get that sense too?
I don't think Lincoln Chafee thinks he's going to be president.
What?
Bob Ehrlich has a better chance of being president than Lincoln Chafee.
Jim Gilmore, I didn't know was even running.
Patacumentum.
The funny thing, though, is that I get the sense that these guys don't have chances, but, like, it's so much more of a toss-up on the right now.
Yeah, totally. I agree with that 100%. Like, well, because on the left, there's only one serious candidate. On the right, there's a bunch of serious candidates. I
mean, that's why and that's the contrast, right? Usually it's a turn-based system with the GOP.
Right.
But now it's sort of like it's Jeb's turn, sort of.
But not really. He's polling at 5% in Iowa.
Yeah.
A lot of people hate him.
And National Journal just wrote that how he's betting everything on New Hampshire, which worked out real well for President John Huntsman. So no, I shouldn't.
It's okay.
It's
okay. President Huntsman President Huntsman thinks it's
how
good.
do you think? What are you curious about with these debates? That Hillary has to move to the left, has to parry these things, and she's going to be the only woman on the debate stage.
Well, the whole, we talked about this during the midterms. I remember the whole point of these debates is, will you or won't you say something that can be used in a 30-second TV ad against you?
Right.
And if you don't say anything that's going to go in a 30-second TV ad, you win. And if you do, you lose. So if Hillary has something along the lines of, what difference does it make, that, that's what we have to watch for. Is she getting angry? Is she, saying things that are going to sound dumb, etc. Is she contradicting herself? How much does she get pressed on the Clinton Foundation? All that stuff. I'm so excited about it. I'm just really, really pumped. I mean, there hasn't been a Democrat presidential debate in forever. I'm very excited.
I know.
It's good. So you want to talk about Republipalooza?
Yeah. So we have 3 candidates come out this cycle, this week. Carly Fiorina, former Hewlett Packard CEO, who's argued multiple times that if she runs for president, Hillary won't be able to use. And she gets a nomination, Hillary won't be able to use her gender and a host of attacks to her advantage. Ben Carson and who am I missing?
Mike Huckabee.
And Mike Huckabee yesterday, who I did not actually think was going to run. And the interesting thing here is that Huckabee's going to run, Santorum is going to run, and it just seems to me that a lot of the niche constituencies are being cut up right now in the GOP, right?
Which is great news for Jeb.
Yeah, which is great news for Jeb, right? So, and great news, I think, for Walker more than Jeb, right? Because Walker might seem a little more viable, a little more conservative. He's a conservative one, but he's not only appealing to that base, right?
Right, and he speaks that base's language. He's son of a pastor, practicing Christian, conservative in a way that doesn't feel put on, or it's, like he memorized a bunch of conservative talking points and is trying to sound conservative. He speaks all of it. All the shibboleths are there.
And you've written about this. Common Core and immigration reform are 2 of his big knocks, right?
Oh yeah. He's going to have a lot of problems, I think, just on the policy side. There's a lot of stuff that I can anticipate people going after him on.
I just feel like when you put Walker and Bush next to each other, to conservatives, Walker is going to feel more appealing because they'll be like, listen, he's not perfect, but he's the strongest candidate we're going to get, and he's not Jeb.
I think the biggest problem for Walker is going to be Cruz. I think Cruz is probably going to do very well in the debates. Cruz has been preparing for presidential debates his entire life, right? He's on the debate team at Princeton or Harvard. Was a prominent, powerful attorney. I think he's going to do really well in the debates, and Cruz will be able to say, I can give you everything Walker can give you, but I'm more conservative on immigration. I'm more conservative on education. Obviously was out front on healthcare stuff. Ted Cruz does not have sort of the baggage in terms of just his resume that Scott Walker has.
It's so weird to me how the new viability of Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, right? Because during immigration reform, Marco Rubio, when they couldn't pass a bill, the Gang of Eight couldn't pass an immigration reform bill. Everyone said, it's over. Rubio has betrayed the base that propelled him here,
right? Yeah,
and now he's constantly mentioned in the top tier. And the same thing with Cruz, right? He led this government shutdown, and now he's still, and I'm with you, Betsy. I think he's going to at least be a force, and
he's raising tons of money. That's a huge deal.
And there are some people in our office, who think that he might actually win the nomination.
I think it's too early to guess who's going to win the nomination, but I think Cruz is probably the person who's going to surprise people the most. I think a lot of people are writing off Cruz, and they'll eat crow later, is my guess. I'm not sure, but that's what I would guess.
I buy that. So it's good. And,
the interesting thing about Marco Rubio too, I forget where this poll was. I want to say Jonathan Allen tweeted this. There was a poll that asked Republican primary voters which candidates they would be okay with voting for, and Marco Rubio had the biggest percent of people saying they'd be okay with voting for him. So Marco Rubio has the fewest haters. Doesn't mean he has the most supporters.
That's what it took last time, right?
Right. Yeah. When you get in sort of war of attrition
was
mode.
Second as everyone popped up. And in retrospect, I kind of respect that. And I think that both with the Romney campaign and the Obama campaign in '08, I think a big trick to running for president in this cycle is that you got to be calm, and there's an appeal to be calm. Like the Romney people were always like, "We're going to be fine. Santorum's up this week. We're just going to keep on grinding this out." And it's the same here. Do you think who's the grind
it's obviously
out?
a long game. I mean, we've been covering this stupid race for the last year and a half.
We've got 16 more months of that.
One of the Iowa caucuses next March. It's literally a year before the first vote that actually matters for the nomination gets cast. And right now, there's all this frantic, breathless coverage of what are the polls saying and who's ahead and who's up and what is Quinnipiac mean?
Jeff Blair,
literally nothing means anything. Literally nothing means anything.
So I was talking to someone about this the other day. What's the most interesting story right now? Because they're really not the Politico scoops about Walker going to fundraise in Michigan or something are not at all interesting. Is it the Clinton Foundation, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think everything that's come out about the Clinton Foundation has been fascinating.
Including Bill earlier this week, which Fox gleefully played over and over again. Say, I
gotta pay the bills.
I gotta make money. Real great.
Awesome.
Real great, Bill.
That's a good way of putting it, Bill. I'm glad you clarified that for all of us. Yeah, totally. I think the Clinton Foundation, the big question is just how bad is it, right? How much stuff comes out? How damaging? Are there more examples of donors apparently influencing policymaking that Clinton did as head of state? Are there more examples of foreign governments giving to the Clinton Foundation that didn't get disclosed? Are there more examples of Clinton breaking promises that she made as State Department head involving Clinton Foundation? All that stuff's a big deal, and it's really bad. And kind of the question is how much does this metastasize? Is there still a drip? What else comes out? It's interesting that David Sirota has gotten a lot of the biggest Clinton Foundation scoops, and he's obviously someone who's to the left of Clinton. He did some reporting on.
He's done reporting on Rahm in Chicago and sort of questionable practices there.
Right, right. And his story is about how donations apparently affected U.S. policy towards Colombia. It was absolutely fascinating, really well done. And I think a lot of the hardest hits against Clinton are probably going to come from her left, both in the debates and sort of from a media criticism perspective. So that's interesting. That's something that's very interesting to me. I think it's also going to be interesting, just seeing what Oppo starts coming out. I feel like a lot of people are kind of sitting on their Oppo, waiting, biding their time.
As reporters, we always sort of, we never quite know, but there is a sense. I was talking with someone actually from Mississippi who was telling me, a GOP operative who was basically, remember when Chris McDaniel was running and Democrats were hoping that Chris would win the nomination. And this operative was like, I think the DSCC, the Democrats' campaign arm, has something that they just didn't end up using. But we never know they choose to place this stuff. But
you never know what's in the vaults.
Yeah. So you think what the interesting stuff is going to come out?
Yeah. I'm interested to see what stuff starts coming out. I feel like there haven't been any really big Oppo hits out of Walker. There haven't really been any big Oppo hits out of Rubio yet.
Walker, the big attacks right now have been on immigration reform, right? And him changing his position on that. In the end, I'm thinking immigration reform is going to be Walker's Romney carry.
Walker's Waterloo. His Walkerloo, if you will.
There's not going to be a perfect candidate. There never is. Right. And I don't know. What do you think?
I think immigration is going to be fascinating. It's going to be fascinating to see how big of an issue it is. Because Jeb Bush has thought a ton about this and is not going to be vacillating on it. But you have Scott Walker going from, I think pathway to citizenship is okay, to I think Jeff Sessions is right about immigration and higher legal immigration levels are bad. That's literally everything you could possibly ever have thought about immigration. And I think, besides the fact that the Republican base is very concerned about comprehensive immigration reform, just the fact that his stance has changed so dramatically in such a short period of time is obviously not good. That's not helpful.
So let me ask you, I wanted to ask you something from the last episode and kind of, I guess I'm calling you out here, Betsy. So you and Jeff Blair 2 episodes ago, were like, now is not the time to lay out a lot of policy positions if you're a candidate for president. Why is that? I kind of feel like maybe I'm thinking like, I think I get strategically why that's the right idea, because you don't get attacked and you don't know what the landscape is going to be, and why like cordon yourself off. But on the other hand, like, isn't that the way to like establish who you are as a candidate and run as that candidate?
I guess there's a difference between particular policy proposals and basic parameters of what you want to do. We know Ted Cruz wants to repeal Obamacare. That's an essential part of who he is. But there's not that I haven't seen a specific Ted Cruz Obamacare replacement policy. I imagine at some point in the campaign he'll have to come out with one. You should. If you want to be president, you should be able to talk about that. But once that comes out, then the dam is going to break. And the contours of the debate totally change. And it's just going to be huge. And it's kind of like Paul Ryan's budget, right? Once you actually make a proposal, you're basically just holding a target up, like, hit me here.
Right.
For instance, and this is an interesting thing about Jeb Bush, is that he actually has come out with a pretty specific immigration policy in his book that came out in 2013. Like, it details pretty clearly what he wants to do on immigration. And it's interesting that there's been fairly minimal discussion of that on the trail.
Right.
I think in Rand Paul's case, obviously you have somebody who doesn't want to talk about policies at all, who seems to have fairly dramatically different policy views every couple of weeks, especially on issues that should have been his bread and butter, foreign policy. So I guess I would make a distinction between talking about your basic principles and goals and then talking about the actual nuts and bolts of how you want to get there.
Gotcha.
I wish candidates would start talking about nuts and bolts now. I think that's the most interesting, important stuff they can talk about on the campaign trail. I think that's what we should be focusing on, rather than focusing on like, who went to Michigan? How many people were at his fundraiser?
It would be my dream to just spend all day, everyone arguing about politics and being like, Christie wants to raise the retirement age. Let's talk about that all the time. Splashy headlines on that got 2 billion clicks or something. That would be nice.
That'd be great. Yeah. But these guys don't want to talk about it. They're going to hedge. It's not going to come out until much later.
And let me even out the playing field. Hillary doesn't really want to talk about, like, we've asked that campaign about Social Security hard, and they haven't laid out a detailed proposal yet. They're probably going to, but it just hasn't come yet. There hasn't been like this, response. This is where she stands on this right now.
Right. Yeah.
So
totally.
We got to get to questions.
Oh yeah.
So we had a few requests. One was on Game of Thrones. Do you even watch that?
Sorry, I just had to wipe my nose. No, I don't. I watched the first episode of the first season with my brother, and there's a lot of incest in that episode, and it was excruciating, and I have no interest in watching Game of Thrones, so.
You should watch that again. There is not as much incest. I've got nothing else to say. I'm a fan of the show.
Maybe.
And then there was something you tweeted yesterday on the Big Lebowski. There's like a Big Lebowski fest.
There's a Big Lebowski. This is one of the great things about covering Walker is I'm reading like more Wisconsin local news. And thanks to that, I noticed that there's a Lebowski fest in Milwaukee this summer, which sounds awesome. And I'm kind of pissed nobody told me about it. We had a Lebowski party in college one time where we like made White Russians and, wore bathrobes and dressed up like characters from Big Lebowski. And it was super fun. Such a great movie.
Who were you?
I think I just had like this really gross green thrift store bathrobe that I wore.
I gotta be honest, I don't know too much Big Lebowski pop culture, and I love John Goodman. He's one of the greatest actors alive, I think. I don't know which character he was. He was Sal? Am I making up those names?
That sounds right. Maybe I haven't seen the movie in a really long time. I've been meaning to rewatch it for like the last year and just not getting around to it.
Hennessy, who asked this question on Twitter, there you go. We don't really know Big Lebowski, but Betsy's cooler on that.
I have a lot of affection for Big Lebowski, but I'm not an expert on it.
Yeah. So that's it. I got nothing else this morning.
You got nothing? The well has run dry.
The well has run dry.
No more
TPM
takes.
has been aggressively, actually I want to highlight this, TPM and our reporter here, Catherine Thompson, has been aggressively reporting on Texas and rumors out of Texas that there's, a military exercise of the state guard, not the National Guard, are preparing in case there's some sort of government takeover of Texas.
Right, Jade Helm.
Right.
Yeah.
I gotta be honest, Betsy. And Ted Cruz said he asked the Pentagon about this. Pentagon said, "We're not
We're
going to
not
take
trying
over
to take over
Texas."
Texas. They wouldn't
Yeah,
tell him.
yeah. I mean, duh, wouldn't come up. We should bring that up. Actually, they wouldn't like say it on the spot if you
I
just
know,
asked.
obviously.
Greg Abbott did not expect
Greg Abbott,
this.
the governor of Texas, called
Greg
the Texas
Abbott, the governor of
military.
Texas, the slayer of Wendy Davis, the
Yep.
great Democratic hope. This sounds like kind of a bonkers thing, and like Greg Abbott is kind of the perfect candidate right now, or he was in 2014. He's good looking. He's married to a Hispanic wife. He's in a wheelchair. He has this great story. He's very much Texas. He used to be attorney general. Like, even if Davis like ran a flawless campaign, but she didn't, he would have been
Right.
really
He would have
tough to
killed it,
beat.
yeah.
Right. I'm a little surprised. Do you think I should be surprised by this Jade Helm stuff?
I don't know. I mean, I think the fact that Abbott is like having the Texas military keep an eye on the U.S. military, it's just so goofy. And you know what's interesting is that Rick Perry came out against the Jade Helm conspiracy theory.
Right.
Rick Perry said, "This is dumb. It's fine to question the government, but don't question our men and women in uniform. Our military is cool. Stop
And
stressing
Perry
out about them."
was supposed to be the Tea Party whisperer.
I know,
right?
the stereotype is that Rick Perry is the wild-eyed, crazy man from the Southwest. But on this issue, he's been the voice of reason. So it's interesting. I think he's going to be full of surprises.
Yeah. I mean, I think the last point to make on this, and I want to say someone in the New Yorker wrote a comment piece, which is sort of like the lead essay sort of commentary thing about the different sects in Texas politics, and that Perry and the Perry camps and the Bush camps hate each other.
Yeah, I think that's true.
From two different worlds. I don't know where Abbott comes in.
Abbott was attorney general under Perry, so I assume they worked together a lot. Sort of Austin, Texas people.
Yeah,
but
I think
I don't know a ton about.
I think
Abbott
the Bushes
world.
are more rural in Texas.
The Bushes are like more Dallas.
Yeah. Okay.
So more sort of like old money.
Right.
Ed Cruz is obviously in Houston. So
yeah.
Texas politics is fascinating. Like
I know. No, it's actually.
I could talk about Texas politics all day. I think it's one of the most interesting things.
All right, Betsy, I gotta go. Thank you so much for this, and as always, high five, buddy. And just remember, in 16 short months of covering the daily grind about this and going through Oppo and trying to hype up sound bites, we'll be done.
Hooray! It's gonna be great.
Yay! Sell it so well.
See you soon.
All
Have
right.
fun in New York.
Thanks. Bye.